Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Dave. I'm a licensed podiatrist. I'd like to thank you for watching my video on my Frugal Foot YouTube channel. I'm doing a series on custom molded foot orthotics, and the last video was the actual molding techniques for the majority of orthotics that are made. Now, every time an orthotic is sent to a lab to be constructed, it has to go with a prescription. The prescription is actually the order that the doctor is giving the lab on how to create the orthotic in a method that the doctor thinks will be advantageous for the patient. So the prescription is just as important as the actual molding. Filling out a prescription form for an orthotic can be as easy or as complicated as the doctor wants to make this. First off, the demographics. And this part's pretty simple, right? You just put in the patient's name, their age, sex, weight, shoe size, shoe type, their occupation. This is important because this will help me determine what type of plate I'm going to use for my orthotic. I need to know how rigid I want to make this. I'm going to stamp, I'll put my company stamp right on this part here so the lab knows who's sending it to them, who to bill. And then I have to select my orthotic plate. Now, this particular lab gives me a fair number of different orthotic types. So again, I'm simply selecting the type of material that is going to be used to make the orthotic. In these days, the popular type is polypropylene, and I can choose the thickness of the polypropylene. I have 4 different options here. Now, polypropylene is pretty rigid. I mean, I can't even bend that. So go back and watch my video on on how to mold for orthotics, and you'll learn about cast correction. But the arch is never the height of the mold because it is so rigid. Well, this lab allows me to choose this ultralight insert. This is carbon fiber, fiberglass, and polypropylene. It's a composite. It's a combination of different types of materials to create this insert. This one eliminates the carbon fiber and allows me to use simply polypropylene and fiberglass. There's a whole bunch of different ones. When we get over on this side, this is a combination of something maybe perhaps like polypropylene and some foam. And then down here you get to some of the inserts where there's no polypropylene. They're really designed to be more just like soft inserts, and they're made with just foam or perhaps some cork, leather materials like this. Now, the reason why this becomes a little complicated is because, truthfully, when we're in school, we're not taught polymer chemistry. You know, a lot of us are biology majors, and we get basic chemistry and we get some organic and stuff like that, but in terms of actual polymer chemistry, we don't really learn that. Now, I can simply call up the lab and ask them to explain these to me, but realistically, I'm the doctor and I'm the one that has to determine which one I think is going to work best for my patient. And there is no book. There is no written book that will tell me, hey, if you have a 250-pound patient, use 3/16 inch polypropylene. It doesn't exist. Then we get to the posting. So we've selected, perhaps maybe we've chosen our polypropylene. I used to choose polypropylene quite a bit. Posting is now going to be the correction that is going to be applied to the insert to make up for the fact that the arch height doesn't match the patient's arch. So here is the posting. This one is intrinsically posted. It's this grind right here. You can put the post on the outside. This one's posted on the outside. All right. So these are options right here. Rear foot posting and forefoot posting. Now, interestingly enough, when I get other patients' orthotics into my office, these are perhaps new patients that come in, they aren't doing well with their orthotic, they show me what they've had made, and they're this style of orthotic, and I look at them, and they almost, I mean, when I say almost all of the orthotics have about 3 to 4 degrees worth of rear foot varus. Now, what does that mean? That means if I create a floor, let's just take this, we'll take this and fold it in half and create for ourselves a floor. There's our floor, and I put my orthotic on the back of it. It would tilt inverted like that. I'm exaggerating it, but it would be about 3 degrees. Well, coincidentally, if you look at this particular prescription form, and this holds true with pretty much all labs, lab standard will apply where order form is incomplete. In other words, if you don't check anything down here, you're going to get 3 degrees of lab, 3 degrees post lab standard, and it will be 3 degrees inverted. Well, should we do 5? Maybe we should do 10. It's pretty much all a guessing game. Most of the time, I would just leave it lab standard and have it built to 3 to 4 degrees. And I see that in the majority of the orthotics that I have that come into my office. I always found that very, very, very frustrating. Let's go to the back. Here's where it really gets interesting. There's a lot of grind work and design instructions that you can give the lab. And there are a lot of podiatrists that really get into this stuff. You can widen the heel, you can raise the arch, you can put little skives and other kinds of angles on the orthotic. There's all kinds of things that you can do from your experience that you think will work well for your patient. And that's what all of these design instructions are up here. And then we get to the cover. Now the cover is unique because, and I've made a lot of videos on different pads that you can apply to over-the-counter arch supports, and that's basically what this part is here. So first off, you tell the lab, look, I only want to have an insert that's shell length. That's shell length. Or I want my patient to have an insert that has a full length that goes all the way to the end of the shoe. And that's what you're telling the lab here. Look at med head length, that's shell length, or full length, that's all the way to the end. What type of material? Vinyl, Spenco, leather? You have different options. And then you have all these different little materials that you can put underneath it to add extra cushioning. And then you get to the actual special padding instructions. And this is where you can add like metatarsal pads or scaphoid pads. I've showed you how to do that one on my videos. Toe crest pads, different pockets here if you have a callus that's bothering you, or a neuroma pad, dancer's pad. Again, I've showed you in other videos how to make these pads and just add them to over-the-counter arch supports, but you can actually add that. So it gets added to the plate before the cover gets put on, and then you can walk on your insert with this type of padding underneath your foot. So that's how, and then of course then there's a special instructions part here, and as well as an area where you can put any kind of deformities that you see that you want the lab to address perhaps with some of these pads. And you can make changes to this. I mean, afterwards, if you want to have some of the padding removed, you can do that, but the shell itself cannot be changed. Once you have the shell, it stays as is. If you ordered 3/16 inch and you don't like that, and all of a sudden you want 1/8 inch, well, that requires calling up the lab and having them make you or print you out a new insert, and you're going to get charged for that. So that's the drill on how these forms are filled out. Now, I'm not, I will say that I always found that the prescription process was just as liberal as the construction and molding process for making these types of orthotics. Now, I want to take you back for a second to our definition of orthotics. The science concerned with the making and fitting of orthopedic appliances. And, realistically, there is science in this, right? I mean, polymer chemistry is a science, and there is science here. But how we're applying those materials, there's a lot of guesswork, there's a lot of opinion, and oftentimes that really that leads us into a problem when they don't work for a patient, because then you really don't have a lot of ammunition left to make what might be an appropriate change. And what I mean by that is that, look, if we're not certain how we're starting, how are we going to know what changes we need to make to an insert if it isn't working appropriately for our patient? And that part has always been a real sticking point for me when it comes to making this type of orthotic. So in our next video, I'm going to show you a different molding technique and a prescription form that I think works really, really well to satisfy our definition of the science of making custom foot orthotics. So stay tuned, that's the next video. And then after that, I think I'll be able to ask you which you think would work best for foot problems. All right, well, I'm Dr. Dave. I really appreciate you sitting around and watching through this very long video. I'll see you on my next video. Oh, and don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video.